Penguin Random House Audio presents The Mirror Test. This is the author, Kael Weston. In gratitude to my twin brother Kyle, the first and last editor, and to my parents Brad and Linda and the whole Weston family, who welcomed me back home to the white peaks and red canyons and Orion skies of the American West after a long time away, and to Lieutenant General Larry Nicholson, wounded in action, a leader in both wars. In memory of Abbas, Hamza, Najim, Kamal, Kaderi, Sami, Ibrahim, Kadir, Fazal, Jamal, Ryan, Nick, Trevor, Rick, Bill, RCH, and each of the 31 angels among so many, many others. For all who do in times of war, including U.S. Army medic PFC Thomas, Tommy L. Cole, for all the teachers and students over there and over here, and especially for all the Iraqis, Afghans, and U.S. Marines along the way and through the years. No better friends, no greater sacrifice. This book is not about heroes, nor is it about deeds or lands, nor anything about glory, honor, might, majesty, dominion, or power except war. Above all, I am not concerned with poetry. My subject is war and the pity of war. The poetry is in the pity. Wilfred Owen. The War Goes On. Life magazine cover, February 11th, 1966. The last of the Light Brigade. There were 30 million English who talked of England's might. There were 20 broken troopers who lacked a bed for the night. They had neither food nor money. They had neither service nor trade. They were only shiftless soldiers, the last of the Light Brigade. They felt that life was fleeting. They knew not that art was long, that though they were dying of famine, they lived in deathless song. They asked for a little money to keep the wolf from the door, and the 30 million English sent 20 pounds and 4. They laid their heads together that were scarred and lined in gray. Keen were the Russian sabers, but want was keener than they. And an old troop sergeant muttered, "Let us go to the man who writes the things on balaclava the kiddies at school recites." They went without bands or colors, a regiment 10 files strong, to look for the master singer who had crowned them all in his song. And waiting his servant's order, by the garden gate they stayed, a desolate little cluster, the last of the Light Brigade. They strove to stand to attention, to straighten the toil-bowed back. They drilled on an empty stomach, the loose-knit files fell slack, with stooping of weary shoulders in garments tattered and frayed. They shambled into his presence, the last of the Light Brigade. The old troop sergeant was spokesman, and begging your pardon, he said, "You wrote of the Light Brigade, sir, here's all that isn't dead. And it all comes true what you wrote, sir, regarding the mouth of hell. For all of us nigh to the workhouse, and we thought we'd call and tell. No thank you, we don't want food, sir, but couldn't you take and write a sort of to be continued, and see next page of the fight? We think that someone has blundered, and couldn't you tell 'em how? You wrote we were heroes once, sir. Please write we are starving now." The poor little army departed, limping and lean and forlorn, and the heart of the master singer grew hot with the scorn of scorn. And he wrote for them wonderful verses that swept the land like flame, till the fatted souls of the English were scourged with the thing called shame. O 30 million English, that babble of England's might, behold, there are 20 heroes who lack their food tonight. Our children's children are lisping to honor the charge they made, and we leave to the streets and the workhouse the charge of the Light Brigade. Rudyard Kipling, 1890. In 1915, Rudyard Kipling's only son, Second Lieutenant John Kipling, was killed in France during World War I at age 18. Preface. I just ask Americans to stop and pause after they make their first stare. Ronnie, Tony Porta, U.S. Marine, wounded in action, Anbar Province, Iraq, 2007. I first met Marine Corporal Aaron Menken in Fallujah in early 2005, just before he lost most of his face in the Iraq War. The State Department had assigned me the prior summer to be the political advisor to the 3-star Marine commanding general based there and to oversee the U.S. government's strategy in the city and Anbar Province. Aaron, a native of Rogers, Arkansas, home to the first Walmart discount city store which opened in 1962, professional in bearing with cobalt eyes, square jaw, high and tight haircut, showed maturity and possessed an eloquence that belied his youthful age. A few months later, Aaron and a unit of Marines were traveling in a convoy when one of the largest roadside bombs to date detonated, an explosion killing 4, wounding 11, and disfiguring Aaron in an instant. His bones cracked and skin scorched, ears, nose, and mouth ravaged. Only Aaron's eyes were left unchanged, shielded by protective goggles, as fire roared through his vehicle's cramped rear compartment and ignited the Marines' grenades, bullets, and flares. The blast lifted the 26-ton transport vehicle nearly a dozen feet into the air, leaving a deep crater below. Aaron suffered severe burns to a quarter of his body, lost his right thumb and index finger. Doctors placed him on a ventilator in the intensive care unit at San Antonio's Military Medical Center. Ultimately, he underwent over 60 surgeries to reconstruct his face and help heal his wounded body. Marine Corporal Tony Porta was also badly wounded in Iraq's Anbar Province at age 20. In a television interview, he described what happened after an IED blasted his convoy in 2007. "I saw my body just burned. I saw my skin melting. It was like a hot candle. His 2 best friends were killed in the explosion." Both are brutal stories, but Aaron's and Tony's are not the only ones. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have resulted in more than 1,100 major burn victims and 1,700 amputees among the 50,000-plus combat casualties, the total killed or injured among U.S. troops. In December 2014, the Congressional Budget Office reported 3,482 hostile deaths, plus another 1,000 from non-battle injuries or accidents, and 31,947 U.S. military personnel wounded in the Iraq War, with over 2,300 dead and 20,000 wounded in Afghanistan. An additional estimated 400,000 have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, mild traumatic brain injury, or both. These numbers continue to rise for those with visible and invisible wounds, not to mention the cumulative toll on veterans' families. Iraqi and Afghan civilians have suffered on an even greater scale. Hundreds of thousands left dead and wounded, along with untold cases of psychological damage from unending warfare. Towns turned into battle zones and family compounds made of mud, raided in darkness. Unlike U.S. troops and me, they could not redeploy. As we returned home, Iraqis and Afghans had no option but to remain amid persistent violence, caught in a truly forever war. Some of the most grievously wounded veterans who survived the bombs and the bullets are cared for at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, located just outside Washington, D.C., where politicians commute to office suites and marble buildings and raise campaign money at invitation-only events far from the war fronts. Staff Sergeant Brown of Sugar Land, Texas, lost 3.5 limbs, both legs, and much of his right arm on his 4th combat tour. His genitals were shredded in the blast. "The new protective underwear came 3 weeks too late for me," he said, and all of it recorded by his buddy's headcam. During one visit, the Marine nonchalantly shared with me the images of his body disappearing in a cloud of Afghan dust and mist of his own blood, with his mom Barbara watchfully standing nearby in a Semper Fi fun jacket. "She likes to treat me like I am still a kid here." But his comment did not sound like a complaint. For some reason that day in Helmand Province's rugged valleys, the Marine added, he had not swept the ground with his metal detector as he had been trained to do, religiously, before starting out on another foot patrol. Staff Sergeant Brown had no idea it would be his last time standing, unaided. Across the hall, on the floor, wounded Marines shared at Walter Reed. Corporal Lopez, a Californian, only remembered that a bomb had propelled him several feet into the air. In mid-flight, he turned and met the eyes of a fellow Marine crouched
Sample complete. Ready to continue?